Hey guys, welcome to Local Relief Live. This is the show where we try to educate you and inform you of what's out there, who's out there, and in this case, things that are out there that are going to help you prepare for disasters. So, a huge thank you to one of our supporters and a friend. His name is Jason Sutton, and he is with a little company you may know called Firman Generators. So, welcome, Jason.
Thanks for having me, Heather.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, we're Furman's obviously a generator company, but we're also pretty heavily involved when it comes to the aftermath of storms and getting out there and helping out.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, kind of fun fact too, I think from, why Furman stands out with me is just the fact that, I'm new to the space. And as far as reaching out to companies and especially big companies, there's always a policy and a procedure that you need to follow and this chain of command that you need to follow. And found Jason's information and gave him a call and he answered. He actually answered. And we had a legit conversation. And I think part of it was just that you were curious as like, who the heck is this? I don't typically answer, but you answered. We had a great conversation and it just went from there. And I know, as far as companies go and as far as especially bigger companies go, that's very rare that someone does just pick up an answer and you can reach. And even in this past year with disasters and I'd reach out to Jason and say, hey, how you doing? And he would either be I think one time you were in Texas with Beryl, another time,
Yeah.
he's hands-on, he's boots on the ground, he's a real person. And I think that's one, big reason why I gravitate so much towards Firman. So just, that's really how we connected and started talking. And then we just really haven't stopped talking. So I do appreciate you for just being a real person from that fact too. So
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I think you're right. When we started Firman Power Equipment 10 years ago in North America, one of the things that we looked at in the industry was service. And how do all the other portable generator manufacturers handle service? And it was kind of really sad. They want you to go to their website, put your zip code in, and just put your generator in your car somehow and go to a service center. And we felt like it was more important that customers have a more hands-on, personal touch. And so our method is completely different. You said that you got me on the phone pretty easy, and that's true also of our tech support and our service. If your generator stops working, you probably just want it to work as quickly as possible. And so to that end, we've got a team of 30 people who are answering the phone day and night on weekends, just all around the clock. And 95% of the time, if you're having an issue with your generator, they're going to be able to help you get it running over the phone. You'd be surprised how many times it's something simple. Most of the time it is, and that's what people want. They want it to run today if that can happen, or if they can't. Obviously we're in every Costco in the U.S., Canada, Mexico. We're in every Lowe's in the U.S. So we have service centers everywhere around the country. But I really think it's so important to just kind of have that personal touch.
yeah, that you do. And that's, one of the reasons why I absolutely, I do. I like your company just for that alone, is pretty impressive.
We sell generators, day in, day out. Obviously, we're on shelf in store, but we certainly sell a lot of generators when there's a big power outage. And that typically means a storm. Where you're at in Florida, everybody knows that means a hurricane. So about 4 or 5 years ago, we wanted to get more involved and kind of helping out after a storm. So we developed the Firman Active Support Team. So that team, we have trailers all over the United States, and we can send them very quickly after a storm. So we're, like for example, last year in North Carolina, we were in Boone, North Carolina, where all the flooding happened, just about 15 miles from Asheville, where it was really bad, and had our big Firman semi in front of a Lowe's store there. And we have a team there that they're cooking food and giving out food. They're repairing generators. So we advertise in social media in that geographic area to let people know that we're there. And if they pulled their generator out of the garage and can't get it started, no matter what brand, they can bring it to us and we're going to do our best to fix it for them. And then the other thing that we do that's really, I think, critical is people don't know that a lot of times when you're running a generator, you need to be able to run it in a place where that's extremely ventilated. And what we say is at least 20 feet from your house, in the backyard, away from the house, not in a garage, even if the garage door is open, or not in a carport, not on a porch. And the reason for that is that carbon monoxide is a silent killer, and it goes everywhere air goes. Carbon monoxide weighs about the same as air. And so anywhere air goes, the carbon monoxide will go, which includes in your house. And sadly, when we looked at all the statistics, we found that after storms, typically there's more people who die from carbon monoxide poisoning than from the storm itself. And so we've done something about that as Firman Power Equipment, and as an industry, all of our new generators have CO shutoff. So they're sniffing the air all the time, and they'll turn themselves off if they smell. Yeah, so if they sense a certain amount of carbon monoxide in the air, they're going to turn themselves off. But there's still millions and millions of generators out there in people's garages that they're using that don't have CO shutoff. And so our team also patrols neighborhoods, and they're looking for people after storms who are running a generator in an unsafe way. They'll spot somebody running it in their garage, or running it in a carport or on a porch, or just too close to an open window, and go knock on the door. They'll offer to move it for them. They'll offer to give them a cord for free if they need to do that, so they can keep getting power. But we've been able to save lives, and it's really meaningful. So it's a really neat way through that team for us to give back.
Yeah, I think that's something too where, and I'm relatively new to this space, so 2.5 years, I've been doing this. And I think, that's the part that I'm really surprised about as well is, people think generator safety, and having it from your car. And, in your mind, I think normally, when you see in movies or when you see in like your blue skies, when there's no stress involved, you think, oh, okay, keep this away, keep this. But when disaster happens and you're not thinking clearly and you just go, oh my gosh, we need power in my house, or the house is boarded, and people think, hey, let's just put it inside, or you're not thinking right, and I think that's huge where, people, it's not the, duh, you should know. It's, you think, but when storms happen, you're not, the only thing you're thinking of is survival at certain points in time, that there's so many different elements that are added on top of that where you're not thinking, clearly. I mean, you're really not. And, and there's so many situations where you don't know what's going on in that house. They could be in a tent, they could be in a car, there's so many different areas of where people are. And I think, that feature alone is huge. And that's something that's new.
So that CO shutoff feature, we call it CO alert on all of our generators.
Okay.
It's really just come into place over the last 1.5 or 2 years. But again, the portable generator industry has been around for 50 years, so there's tons of generators on the market that people have that don't have that feature. So, and you're right, in a high stress environment, people aren't thinking clearly. And I think there's a lot of bad information out there. Like I said, one of the common things that, as we're out and about, we hear all the time, people think, well, I have it in my garage so it won't get rained on, and I've got my garage door cracked, or I've got my garage door open, thinking that somehow that's going to let the carbon monoxide out into the open. But when you close up your house at night and you go to bed, you might have all your doors and windows closed, but you don't worry about being able to breathe all night. And clearly air does get into your house. And in the same way, that carbon monoxide will find its way into the house too. So we do a lot to try and promote education on that. We work with the Florida Division of Emergency Management, and we've developed some campaigns with them to try and get that word out and just do our best to really educate the consumer so that people know that. It really is critical.
Yeah, we have stuff on the local relief app too, so we have put, a generator safety, even a whole section on it, because it is such an important piece that people don't realize. And again, you can say all you want about, oh, people should know, but you know what, when it hits the fan and you're, again, thinking of just survival, you're really not thinking of that element. And it is, and it's huge, but so people need to, it's called CO alert.
CO
is that
alert.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So certainly generator safety is important. You kind of touched at the beginning of this on, being prepared. Unfortunately, we do sell a ton of generators during storms, but we believe the time to buy a generator is not the day after the storm. It's kind of like buying car insurance the day after your accident. A generator for most people is insurance. It's something that you hope you never need, but when you need it, it's super important. And for some people, it's critically important. There's a lot of people out there that are sleeping with CPAP machines, and they need to be able to, to do that, to safely get a good night's sleep. Those things need power. There's people that have medications that have to be refrigerated, and refrigerators obviously need power. There's people that have oxygen concentrators and, that are making the oxygen that they breathe. So there's all kinds of things where just being able to have access to ice, keeping your refrigerator on can be such a godsend, having ice and being able to keep your food cold. A lot of times storms. I've been to a lot of the areas, that have been really heavily hit by storms, and we, with our teams, and I'm there, a day or two at the most right after the storm. It can be hard to get food, so being able to refrigerate food is a really big deal. And then just having some comforts, like unfortunately the hurricanes in Florida seem to happen when it's most hot outside, so
yeah, of course.
you can have your air conditioning on, or you can even have a window air conditioner in the bedroom so you're sleeping through the night, not roasting. That can really be an incredible difference.
Yeah.
But again, being prepared in our minds means make that plan beforehand. And I think a lot of people think that way, especially if you're in an area that gets hit by storms a lot. People do think about being prepared. They might have some cases of bottled water or candles or flashlights. But, I think in this modern age, when we rely on electricity for so many things like refrigeration and air conditioning, even communications, a lot of times when the power goes out, your internet might still be on, but you don't have access to it because your router and your modem's off, so having access to communications and being able to charge your cell phones and your laptops and all those things is also important, so I think, having a generator, even if it doesn't have to be a gigantic one, in years past, everybody thought you had to have a huge generator, and you really don't. Now, most people, I think, probably have compact fluorescent or LED light bulbs in their house, where a light bulb used to take 100 watts and now it takes like 8, so you can power a lot of things with a much smaller generator, which also means you're going to be able to have a quieter generator, like one of our inverter generators. You're going to be able to have it run a lot longer on a lot less fuel. So all of those are things to think about. But again, the ideal time to think about all that is, planning in advance when the weather's calm.
Now we have, thanks to Firman, we have a generator at our house, and that was before Helene. You sent local relief one, which I thank you for. And in that, try like 3 different types of power. So it's a tri-fuel. So talk about the tri-fuel and why my friends were jealous that I have one.
Tri-fuel is really, really great. That's our best-selling generators at both Costco and Lowe's are tri-fuel generators. And it's because they have a lot of versatility when it comes to fuel. So like the name sounds, you can run it on 3 different fuels. You can run it on gasoline, you can run it on propane, and you can run it on natural gas. So if you have natural gas at your house, you can tap into like a barbecue stub. You can have a plumber come and install a stub so that you can run your generator on natural gas. And what's really great about that is you just don't have to worry about fuel. So you would never store 100 gallons of gasoline at your house. That wouldn't be safe, and gasoline goes bad when you store it for any decent length of time. So being able to connect to natural gas is a big deal. Or that generator, like I said, also runs on propane, so you can store propane for a long time safely. I've got, embarrassingly, I think I have 3 barbecues in my backyard, and I have a smoker, and I have a gas grill, and So I think a lot of people are like me, where you might have, 3 or 4 or 5, 20-gallon propane cans laying around anyway. And it's easy I can store propane for a very long time, and it's very safe to store it. The other thing that we found, and that I've seen firsthand when we're in the aftermath of a storm, is it can be really difficult to get gasoline. A lot of times, if you're without power, the gas stations are also without power, and the stations that do have power have massive lines. So if you're running a generator that needs, let's say, 10 gallons of gas a day, you're going to have a lot of gas cans. You're going to be going to the gas station a lot. So having a tri-fuel generator and being able to run it also on propane after a storm, it's pretty easy to get your hands on propane. So being able to run propane, or the best solution, being able to run it on natural gas, is really, really great.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point that you bring up too, is that, even before, we of course were stocking up on propane and whatever, gasoline is difficult. And it's not just what you think you want to use for an energy source. It's what you have to use for an energy source in a lot of cases, where you don't have access to gasoline. You don't have, hands down near us, it was propane, that was easier to get because you could get it at a gas station, but you didn't have to. You could also go to Ace Hardware. You can go to other hardware stores. You can go, there's so many other places to get propane, where gasoline, you're limited. And those are the places with lines, because now you're fighting with cars, so, so really consider that, to where it's not just what you think you're going to want to use for a power source. It's what you may need to use as a power source. And the other part too, which you had mentioned, getting a plumber to attach, you talked as far as the natural gas. Is that something someone can set up on their own, as far as hooking up to their line of natural gas at their home?
Yeah, if you have a barbecue stub. So a lot of people have, if you have natural gas at your home, a lot of people might already have a stub coming out of the back of the house in your backyard, where it's made to connect a grill that runs on natural gas. So you might already have a stub there. And if you do, it's really easy. You could turn off the gas at your gas meter, and then open the cap and connect the generator right to that stub. If you don't have a stub there already, then you would probably need to have a plumber come and install one. So there are ways to do that. They're not terribly complicated, but yeah, if you already have a stub in your backyard for a barbecue that's natural gas, it's really, really easy.
Okay. Is that something you guys have videos for? Or is that something people can YouTube? That's one of those.
I'm
please
sure
don't try
you
this
can YouTube
unless.
it. I don't
Yeah.
know that we have a video for it. I'm not sure, but and you're right. I would kind of preface all that with based on your ability and experience. So
Yeah.
if you feel any trepidation about it, call a plumber.
Yeah. Please call someone. Yeah. Don't try that one, especially when you're talking natural gas and you're talking close to your home and you're talking like big boom, not a little boom. That's a big boom. So
another point when it comes to being prepared and generator usage is that we see all the time is people, they're buying generators the day after a hurricane and they're saying, how do I connect things in my house? How do I connect this to my house? And there's some really great ways to do that, but there are things that you need to think about and plan for before the storm. So there's two really great ways. One is to have a transfer switch installed. So it installs next to your electrical panel, and it has breakers in it, and it basically connects the generator to your electrical panel. The other way and again, these are things you'd want to have an electrician do. You wouldn't want to do this yourself.
Yeah.
But you could install a transfer switch, or you can install what's called an interlock. And what an interlock does is they install an outlet that's an input for your generator right next to your electrical panel, and it goes into the panel into a 50 amp breaker. And the interlock is basically a piece of metal that'll be screwed to the front side of your breaker, and it makes it so that when you can't turn on that 50 amp input coming from the generator without turning off your main input coming from the grid. And the reason that's so important, a lot of times people think like they can make a cable that'll connect to like their dryer plug and plug the generator into their house that way. And it's a really bad idea. Like we call that a suicide cord, because what it does is it'll feed power backwards into your panel. But at the same time, if you forget to turn the main breaker off and the power comes back on, now you've got power coming from the grid and coming from your generator. And it's very highly likely to cause damage or even start a fire. Or what's worse is if a lineman is out in front of your house and he's working on the power lines, they might think those lines are dead, but you're feeding power back into the lines from your generator. So if you have that main breaker on. So if you're going to connect your generator directly to your house, definitely do so with either a transfer switch or an interlock. And again, that's something that any electrician can install. You can typically have an interlock installed for maybe $300 or $400, so it's not terribly expensive. But once again, you're not going to get an electrician to come to your house and do that in the days after a storm.
Yeah.
That's something to start planning for now.
Well, and in addition to that comment, this is exactly the time. People think, oh, it's not the time. This is exactly the time to prepare for it. One, you want to make sure you get your generator when you get the generator you want. Now, kudos to Firman, because they had like stock the entire time of wherever. And that's a whole different topic. But you want to get the generator you want and the one that fits your home. Then in addition to, we live in Florida. Good luck getting an electrician to your house the day you want him there. It's not going to happen. You have to make that appointment weeks in advance, and then assuming they have the parts with them or the parts they need or whatever, that in itself may take a month or two just to get that part finished, so this is exactly the time to prepare, is grab those generators now, start having those conversations now, talk to your electrician now, get things booked, get things on the schedule to be ready for that next storm. Because this is something, again, you never want to create something that's called a suicide cable. That's not a way that you want to prepare yourself, your family, your home, anything along those lines.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it is absolutely right now, which is huge. And I can also say too, I think the code is what is our code? Local 30.
Local 30.
So you can get a discount from local
off.
Relief. So you get hence the 30, you get 30% off, which is a big deal. So use local 30 and go to Firman. What's the website again?
FirmanPowerEquipment.com.
There you go.
So like fireman without the E.
Perfect. Yeah, and definitely, start to plan for that now. But in addition, and it kind of as mentioned earlier, during Helene, and that's where I was, shooting text to Jason because I had people reaching out to me in Georgia, North Carolina that were, in fact, looking for generators. And,
Yeah.
and that's something too, where there are people that had specific needs, again, not the fuel type they want, but the fuel type they need, so get those generators, get that stuff, get that going now, so you don't have to be one of those people chasing it. But if you do, typically you're going to find Firman generators. They are phenomenal at keeping stock. They run rampant, during the storm. They're right there with you, making sure that people are stocked up on these things, so kudos to you guys for that. And also when you were in Texas, I know you guys were helping with Barrel, but now you have a nonprofit organization, correct? Tell me about that.
We do. Yeah. So our FAST team evolved into a nonprofit that we started called CERF, it's the Community Event Response Foundation. And it was a way for us to just grow what we're doing on, with boots on the ground after storms in an even more meaningful way. So we're really excited about that. We started that about a year ago. Like I said, we have a partnership with the Florida Division of Emergency Management, and we're working on partnerships with other state emergency management authorities. But yeah, it really just kind of let us grow that as an independent thing and allow people to give. If you want to give, you can give at surfworks.com to help what we're doing. But, I think it kind of became, it got a life all of its own. And I know what's really neat to me is that there's still a lot of Firman employees, for whatever reason, storms tend to happen on the weekends or holidays. I don't know why, but there's still a lot of Firman employees that still volunteer their time to, jump on a plane and fly right to where the storm hit and be really uncomfortable for, a number of days or up to a week out there helping people. So, it's really thrilling to me. We've been very blessed as a company, and it's really neat to get to bless people back.
Oh, no, I think that's phenomenal. Now, as far as the people coming to you for assistance, what's the most common? You said some things are, like a minute or two to fix. What's like troubleshooting?
Sure.
Is there like a best practice or a typical?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked because, probably 90% of the time it's carburetor. And I can tell you why. So anything with a carburetor, like your lawnmower or generator, when you run it on gasoline, it's super important to get all the gasoline out of it before you store it for a long time. So let's say you bought your generator, you brought it home and you put the oil in it and you put gas in it and you tested it out. And now it's got 5 gallons of gasoline in it. And then you put it away in the garage for a year or 2 years. And now there's a storm and you pull it out and it won't start. The reason for that is that in a carburetor, there's a thing called a jet, and the jet has a tiny, tiny hole in it. We're talking like the size of like one wire on a wire brush, and the fuel needs to go through there. Really hole, a really tiny hole, and the fuel needs to go through there and atomize, and it gets sprayed into the engine and gets burned. Well, when you leave gasoline in something for a long period of time, that gasoline tends to kind of gum up and varnish, and it plugs that tiny little hole, and which is why if you've ever taken a weed whacker or a lawnmower out of your shed or out of your garage after not using it for 6 months, it won't start. That's exactly what it is. So yes, the best thing you can do to make sure that your generator is going to start is go ahead and test it, and then or run it, or you're using it for something before you put it away. If you're running on gasoline, just let it run until it dies. Get all the gasoline out of it. Now, we talked about tri-fuel generators. If you're running on propane or if you're running on natural gas, that's not an issue at all. You can just put it away. Both of those fuels are dry fuels, so they don't gum up the carburetor in the same way. So probably 90% of the time that people bring us their generators that won't start, it's because the jet in the carburetor is clogged, or they've just left fuel in the gas tank for so long that the fuel is just bad. So it's absolutely something, there's definitely something that can be done about that. The other thing I would just add is if you have a generator that's electric start, which many of ours are, they have a battery. And so if you're going to store it in your garage for any length of time, you want to connect a trickle charger to that battery. A lot of our generators come with a trickle charger, but if they don't, if you have a generator that doesn't have a trickle charger with it, make sure you're connecting a trickle charger to the battery. And all that does is just maintains that battery. So when it sits for a year, you go out there and it's going to start. Same with your car. If your car sat for a year, that battery would definitely be dead. So the generator works exactly the same way.
Is it something that people should test more than, like, let's say here for hurricane season? Is it something that people should bring out every couple months, or that people should just start? Or what's your advice, like best practices for how to store a generator?
That's a great question. So if you don't want to run all the gasoline out of it, you can just pull it out of the garage once a month and start it and let it run for 10 minutes. The only caveat there is the gas in the tank over time will also go bad. So in my opinion, if you're running all the gasoline out of it and if you're trickle charging the battery, I don't think there's a reason to pull it out and start it once a month.
Okay. Yeah, and then same thing for bringing that sucker out for hurricane season. I was gonna say I can't say any advice. I guess you just start it, right?
Yep.
Is that accurate? Start it, make
20
sure,
feet,
but
20 feet from your house. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Be safe. Yeah, get it out in the backyard.
So what's your thought for this season, this year? Anything in particular? Is there anything that you've heard as far as the season goes?
Yeah, the forecast just came out 3 or 4 weeks ago. University of Colorado does the hurricane forecast every year, and it's forecasted to be another busy season. So we will see. But yeah, unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be another busy one.
Well, it's at least nice knowing that you're here if it is. So, so
Be prepared.
we definitely appreciate you. You will get some calls from me, I assure you.
Anytime.
Yeah, no, thank you. And again, I mean, is there anything else you would like to add? I know we kind of talked about how to reach you. Maybe we kind of summarize with your nonprofit, how to reach you, the Local 30.
Sure.
Put all that together.
Use coupon code local30 at firmanpowerequipment.com for 30% off. And that coupon, there's a place to plug that coupon code in at checkout, and you'll get 30% off your purchase. And by the way, free shipping on everything you buy at firmanpowerequipment.com. If you want to donate to our nonprofit and help us with that mission, that website is just SurfWorks, and it's CERF Works, surfworks.org. And then just pay attention to our social media. During times of crisis, you can see everything that we're doing. The hurricane hit up in North Carolina, we donated over 1,000 generators to charities on the ground there. So we work with God's Pit Crew, and to see some really amazing charities that get out there and get generators in the hands of people that really need them. So follow us on social media, and then check out some of our partners too, other nonprofits with whom we work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's 1,000 generators. That's a lot of generators.
It was a lot of generators. Yeah.
That's a boatload.
Shout out to Mountain 2C. They're MTN2SEA. You can check them out on Facebook and Instagram, but they're a really amazing kind of grassroots charity, a faith-based organization, but that are loaded with racks of our generators that we donated. And they are like boots on the ground, like the morning after a storm. And so they get out, and what they do is they loan our generators out to churches and schools and anywhere that people are going to gather so that there's power. Wow. And so they loan them out. They make sure they're all maintenanced and serviced. They also they have a coffee roasting company as part of what they do. And so they have coffee makers out, and they're making coffee for people, and they're just generally like there to help. And what's great about it is that after the storm, they go, unless there were people that needed to keep that generator, for one reason or another, they go out and collect them all. They service them and change the oil and everything and get them all ready to be used in the next storm. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. But yeah, check them out if you can. Or like I said, God's Pit Crew, they donate, we work with them, and they donate tons of generators all over the country after storms as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. I will say to anyone that, just that I don't want to say doesn't know disasters, but disasters as rough as they are, you really do see the best of humanity. Like you 100% see the best of the best come out in people, and it will impress you, and it will inspire you, and it will change you, 100%, because it really is, it's a remarkable, I don't even know how else to describe it. It brings out 100%. It's the best of humanity, so.
Yeah, I see that time and time again. I've been, on the ground after a lot of storms, and you're right. I mean, people just go out of their way to help, and it's really amazing. Yeah. So unfortunately, the Lowe's store in Asheville, North Carolina, during the hurricane last year was under 30 feet of water and destroyed the store. Lowe's has rebuilt that store, and they have a grand opening this weekend. Firman will be there. We have a team of our people that'll be there with one of our big Firman trailers, and we'll be passing out, I think, some storage straps and some koozies and hot dogs, and our people will be out there grilling. So if you're anywhere in that area, definitely stop by the store in Asheville, North Carolina. And I think it's also super important that people get back there. It is a tourist town, and so not only was the flooding devastating, but it was economically devastating to the town because the tourism just went away. So really kind of need people to get back and enjoy the beauty of Asheville and feed some money back into that economy.
Yeah, agreed. That's our place. I don't know if you knew that or not, but that's like where we go. We always go to either like Waynesville, Brevard, Hendersonville, like all of those towns. Nice. And you don't realize how much of their income is from renting their home through,
Sure.
Verbo and all that other, like
Mm.
they
All the
depend
coffee
so much
shops
on
and the
that.
lunch spots and
Oh my
all that,
gosh. And
just yeah.
apples, like apple
Right.
festivals
Right.
and, go to the breweries, go to the wineries. But
Mhm.
seriously, take some time if, take a weekend, take a
Yeah,
weekend away
absolutely.
and go support locals, and always when you go there, I think it's kind of best practices. And really, I do not go to chains, as far as restaurants go. I'm a big
Yeah, shop
lover of,
local.
oh my gosh, entrepreneur. Are you kidding me? It's all about the
Yeah,
mom and pop.
get better
So,
food too.
oh my
If
gosh,
you look
yeah.
at if you look at Lowe's social media today, they have video of the flooding from last year, and
Yeah.
it's quite a sight to see. The store almost completely submerged. Like so, it's amazing that they bounce back so quickly. But they're an important part of that community. So
Yeah, yeah. Well,
yeah,
and that's an important piece to help others rebuild as well.
that's
You
right.
don't realize as far
Yeah,
as when you go to homes in the mountains, it is so much money to repair those homes because to try to get all the materials up the
right.
mountain and the road and whatever and the
Yeah,
turns and all of that stuff. That's why, those homes are so well preserved and maintained is because it is a nightmare to try to fix them. So I
right.
can't imagine trying to fix those homes without having a Lowe's
Without a hardware
that's
store.
open or
Yeah,
available.
right.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
I never
Yeah.
even thought about that part. Go support these businesses, support local, and in this case, support Asheville because they could
Yeah.
use some love. So thank you for doing that as well. That's huge that you're going to be there. And, again, you really do have like the small company and mom and pop feel for as big as your company is, which is truly impressive. And again, one more reason why I'm in your colors today.
Appreciate that.
So,
That's great.
yeah, I do. Yeah. Well, I thank you very,
Yeah,
very
my
much.
pleasure.
Obviously, yes, please, please like and share and all of that stuff with Firman. We do appreciate you. And, speaking of which, also please like, share, follow anything with local relief. We are all over the
That's right.
place. So again, with this podcast, please subscribe to that. We will bring you more fun and important and, as you can see, educational and information that you need. So please watch the next one. And until then, I thank you and I will see you soon.
Thanks, Heather. So nice talking to
Oh,
you.
thank you. Absolutely. You too.